Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today we are talking about the Internetworking chapter in our KNX Advanced course. My name is Wissam. I'm certified KNX tutor. And as usual, mics are disabled. And if you have any question, you can type it or you can ask it later. This chapter is totally theoretical chapter. Nothing is practical related to this chapter. We talked about data point types in the basic course, if you recall, when we were talking about switching is 1 bit, relative dimming is 4 bits, absolute dimming is 8 bits, something like that. But here we'll talk about it in more details. In this chapter, you'll have 2 questions coming in the theory exam. Out of 20 questions we'll have in our question bank, and we'll talk about that in details when we come to the theory exam, inshallah. But why should we have this kind of internetworking? Okay. The standardization of internetwork is allowed, KNX allowed this to make sure that devices can talk together even from different manufacturers. Okay, and it's a standard, worldwide standard now. Okay, and it's mandatory for certification. So a KNX device should respect, manufacturer should respect that. Otherwise, during the testing, it will not be allowed to have this device as a KNX certified device. What is the advantage of internetworking? Very basic. It will allow me to bring devices from same manufacturer or even different manufacturers, and they should work together without worry. Okay, also will allow manufacturer to make OEM or white labeling devices to other manufacturing as well. Okay, all manufacturers can be linked together, and this allowing, or this, let's say, standardization also allowed the standardization of the training itself, because it's now based on ETS, and ETS device will work together without worrying because they all using this standardization. Okay, good. Right. KNX Internetworking, they have some basics. The data type, we'll talk about this in details, and we also have something called functional blocks. So each device can have a functional block talking about the data types of this device, okay, and the inputs and outputs of this device as group objects as usual, okay. And here we're talking about 2 types of standardization. One is open standard or mandatory standard, which is related to the group objects. It should be coded according to KNX standard, okay? Because this will be that they are the elements that will allow connection together. However, I can, as a manufacturer, I can encode my parameters in the device itself based on my standard, okay? So this is manufacturer specific, the parameters, okay? Data point types will have 4 main aspects, 4 main encoding types. I have the format, the coding, the value, and the unit. We'll talk about them in detail. So let's say what are the formats I have. I have data points which are symbol type with something very clear like numbers or boolean. Enumerated types which are not really related to each other but related in the function itself, like the thermostats will have an eco mode, comfort mode, something like that. Or structure type like what we have in the dimming itself. We have a control, we have a switching, something like that. Or status type, okay, which is mostly used in the heating technology. Okay, and still you don't need to memorize that. KNX common data bytes. Normally data point types are described in 2 digits. One will talk about the format and one talk about the range. Okay, and these data point types are normally coming each few years. You have more data point types, comings. Who is responsible for that? The Internetworking group. Okay. By the way, most of those data you'll be needing not in this exam, not in the advanced course, but if you're taking the tutor exam, then you need this data because the tutor exam is covering all of that. Okay? But the first one we have is 1 bit, which is the boolean. It can be a boolean, it can be true or false, it can be open or closed, like a switching, and it's a 1 bit. And then we have another one, which is with priority control. Normally I use it for binary sensors when I want to have another priority, saying this one is a normal priority or a higher priority, okay? In this case it will have 2 bits, okay? This is why it has 2 bits, and 1 bit will allow priority, okay? I also have a 3-bit one with, okay, with control, meaning control what? Meaning up or down, decrease or increase. And this is, as an example, are using for relative dimming. Recall when we were talking about relative dimming, we were talking about 4 bits. Remember that? Actually, the 4 bits are not all allowed for the data. 3 bits are for the data. You can see it from here. So 3 bits are for the data. and 1 bit is used for to mention is it I'm decreasing or increasing. Okay, this is the idea. Okay, so 3 bits are for the data. If not, doesn't have a unit. And then I have, if this one is 0, then I'm decreasing. If the fourth bit is 1, then I'm increasing. Okay, very good. Same thing for the shutters. Okay, so I have 3 for the relative shutters, and 1 for is it up or down. Okay, different data bytes. Okay, I can also have data bytes for sending text. Okay, this is 1 byte. I can have data bytes also which are 8-bit without sign. In this way I can have described of 255 valid data in this one. If I put a sign, meaning I want to send a minus or a positive, then the value will be decreasing because 1 bit is now assigned for the sign. Okay, good. 2 octet without sign. Okay, which I can use also for reading something like time period. Okay, or 2 octet with sign. Okay, which also I can use it for other values as well, and also the data is lower or less now because I have 1 bit assigned for the sign. I have octet floating point number, which I can use as well with this specific resolution. Okay, and I can use it for something like the air quality, humidity, stuff like that. Okay, this octet floating point, which is 2 bytes. Okay, I can also have data points for the time, which is 3 octet, by the way. I have also 1 for the date. Okay, also 3 octet, and I can combine them together to have a date and time, of course. And here it talks a lot about what is included in the bits and bytes of the data type of date or time. I have 4 octet without sign also, and I have 4 octet with sign. I have 4 octet floating point number, which I use it for a lot when I have something that I need a lot of accuracy, a very high number of accuracy, like what? Like reading the length, the impedance, power, speed. In this way I need a lot of accuracy, which is why I have 4 octet. Okay, access controls will have their specific data point types, by the way, described for them, and here you have an example for that. HVAC also. The scene controls also, I have 1 byte for them, if you recall. Okay, so if I have a scene control, I have a 1 byte for scene control. HVAC will also have their own data point types. One of them is a famous one. Okay, the DPT HVAC mode, which describes the mode of the HVAC itself. Is it auto, comfort, or what? And by the way, in the early days of the HVAC, those data points were normally coming with 1 bit. So 1 bit to describe a lot of things. But now they have it in 1 byte in the new systems. And sometimes when you face all the systems and you configure one of the, let's say you configure the HVAC, the FCU as an example, the actuator, to act as with 1 byte, but maybe you'll find that thermostat don't understand the 1 byte data coming from the HVAC. So you have to configure it with 1 bit. In this case, the compatibility is not that much because that was a new one. The data point type for HVAC was not an old one. Then you can combine those data points together in something that we call functional block. And he wants to tell you that each device will have a minimum data point types together. So as a dynamic actuator, and to get certified, at least I have those 3 data points. Okay, I have the switching, I have the relative dimming and the absolute dimming. If I have an actuator that will act as a shutter or blind, then I should have a step stop and the up down. These are the minimum. If I don't have this minimal, then I will not be able to get my certification because it's obligatory for certification. Okay, that's the end of the chapter. Theory 1, not long. If you face questions in the exam related to the data point types, which bits, which bytes, then go ahead and open the PDF and see it itself. You don't need it for your real life unless you are a manufacturer, or for going for certification, or maybe in the tutor exam itself. Okay, if any question, let me know, and I will see you inshallah in the next chapter. Assalamu alaikum.